Hi everyone. Thanks, Nancy, for the introduction. My name is Alicia Chow. I'm project manager here at Reagan-Udall working on our Critical Path to TB Drug Regimens project. So this is going to be slightly shifting gears into the global health arena, so bear with me. So just as a little bit of background on the overall global health priority that TB presents, while it's kind of thought of as a disease of the past here in the US, it's still a major problem elsewhere in the world. It's still considered the second biggest killer from a single agent disease. And the recent WHO statistics, 9 million people developed TB in 2013 and 1.5 million died. And while these numbers do show a downward trend over the past 10 or so years, it still warrants a lot of attention, mainly because, as you'll see from the figure here, as I mentioned, it's a big problem in elsewhere outside of the US. And the 22 high-burden countries highlighted in the picture represent 80% of TB cases worldwide. And then the last major point I wanted to make here, that there are still critical funding gaps to address the TB issue. So while we have made progress in the past 10 years, in order to keep pace with that project, we're going to need to address about a $2 billion US funding gap in the research, because its current estimates, it requires $8 billion a year to provide a full response to combating TB. So now a little bit about the CPTR, the Critical Path to TB Drug Regimens Initiative. So this is a much larger partnership that Reagan-Udall is a part of. So the CPTR was founded in 2010 by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Critical Path Institute, and the TB Alliance. Reagan-Udall came on as a partner in 2011. So really the overall goal of the CPTR is to speed the development of new drug regimens for TB. So not single drugs, focusing on regimens. So the main goal here is really focusing on a paradigm shift from traditional drug development approaches, looking at single compounds, to really looking at novel combinations. And so CPTR focuses their work on supporting advances in the regulatory science behind TB drug regimen development, and also making sure that we focus on developing tools and ensuring that the appropriate infrastructure is in place to support and facilitate this drug development. This diagram kind of just shows you the overall operating structure of CPTR. Like I said, Reagan-Udall is a small piece of the puzzle. The different work areas are divided up into the Regulatory Science Consortium, which focuses more on the technical aspects of looking at disease progression modeling, biomarkers, and clinical endpoints. A new area in rapid drug susceptibility testing to basically screen and using technologies to screen patients to make sure we get them on the most appropriate regimens and treatments as soon as possible. And then obviously the Drug Development Coalition, which focuses on the clinical trials. So Reagan-Udall's work is focused in the research resources arm, which really looks to develop tools and resources to make sure ensure the best chance of success for the rest of CPTR. So I want to focus in on two main areas of our work with CPTR. So the first is in stakeholder and community engagement. So in this work group of CPTR really just works to ensure that adequate and appropriate community engagement happens at all levels of TB drug research. And just helps to develop resources to ensure that the participatory approach is applied through all stages. The second area is looking at global regulatory pathways. And what we do with this work group is really try to convene global regulatory authorities to foster dialogue amongst them and between also with the WHO and national TB programs, particularly within the high-burden TB countries, just to bring all parties together to discuss critical regulatory challenges that impede the approvals of these drugs abroad, and looking to see if we can create more efficient regulatory pathways, getting into some harmonized approaches. I want to focus now specifically on our community engagement efforts. If any of you have been here in the past meetings, you might have heard me mention the Good Participatory Practice Guidelines for TB Drug Development. So this is a resource document that the CPTR produced in collaboration with AVAC, which is the Global Advocacy for HIV Prevention. So we worked with AVAC to adapt their GPP resource that they had already had out because we wanted to apply that concept specifically to the context of TB. So really what this resource provides is a principle-based framework. So really moving towards a more systematic approach to community engagement, putting in a more thoughtful process to ensure that community stakeholders are engaged throughout from the very beginning of research all the way through the end to results dissemination and issues of access. Why is this necessary? Well, one, your community are a critical stakeholder because they really have essential knowledge that you need when you're setting up clinical trials in various areas. But then there's also the ethical component. They have a right to be engaged in this research and should have an active voice. So we released this in 2012. And so a lot of our work since then with CPTR has been focused on developing tools and training materials to help implement the GPP-TB. Yeah, so anyway, so we're developing training resources. One thing we're doing is in partnership with FHI 360, which is a nonprofit group. And they actually received a grant from the National Health Institute to look at implementation of the GPP-TB and also getting into some evaluation. So we're collaborating with them to put together some training presentations, webinars on the concepts of GPP, and then also we're going to be looking at compiling case studies as ways to highlight actual practical experiences of people setting up their CE programs and implementing GPP. Because one of the first bullet, we had a meeting the fall of last year at the Union World Conference on Lung Health, and one of the key needs that came out of that discussion was the need for more evidence of the impact of community engagement, basically as a way to convince sponsors and funders that CE is worth the investment because it's historically been an add-on to research programs. And so now we're trying to shift gears into making it a more integral part of the research process. The very last thing, this is a new area of work for us. We did, the fall of last year, we got a new grant from the Gates Foundation to continue our work with the CPTR partnership. And so we were really excited about that, particularly because we added in a new area of work. This is a TB Regulatory Science Fellowship. So we're still in process of working with FDA and CPTR leadership to define the scope of this, but it will, the fellowship will address the critical regulatory science challenge that currently impedes TB drug regimen development. And these challenges could include issues with clinical trial design, use of early endpoints, and the role and use of drug susceptibility testing. And yeah, for more information, you can go to the Reagan-Udall website or the CPTR website.